Hi, this is Katie, and thank you for joining me on the My Senses, My Space podcast. And today I wanted to talk about reaching your limit. Sorry if my throat is a little scratchy. We have a little bug going around our house right now, as per expected. And this came to me because we are discussing in our household, especially with my son, about what your limits are in terms of how much you can do, how much you need to rest, how much, what are those limits in your life? So, and I think it depends so much upon what time of day it is, what kind of day you're having, how you're feeling, how your body is feeling. If you have a chronic illness or are neurodivergent, you know, or at least you suspect, that is dynamic and that it changes, and that some days the overwhelm is way too overwhelming, or there are some days that you can sit down and think, oh, well, I can handle a little bit more. My limit is higher today. To know when that cutoff is between burning out, doing way too much, going, whew, I need a long break after this. And I think we often do overextend ourselves. I think, again, if you have a chronic illness and are neurodivergent, you see that the world has expectations of people who don't have those things, those conditions, and you try to push a little harder to fit in, to go, oh, well, if they're doing it, then I can do that too, right? And that's hard. That's really hard. And it took a long time for me to realize, okay, my limits are very different from a lot of other people. And I'm not going to say normal because there is no normal. There can be some typical or trends of groups of people that may be able to have more physical energy, have more mental energy, have more spiritual or like any kind of energy within your body, can like keep going. They can like go, well, this is not my limit. I can keep going. I can see this through to the end of the day and know that they're going to need a break too. Like no one can go forever. Everyone needs to sleep. And even if you have a tough time sleeping, you still need to sleep. Everyone's body needs to sleep. All living beings need to rest in some way. The trees need to rest. The plants, the animals, everything needs rest. But knowing how, comfortable can you push yourself? How far can you push yourself until like everything pushes way back and you feel like, wait, I did too much. Again, it's taken me many years, I'm in my 40s, to go, okay, no, these are my comfortable limits. I certainly wasn't quite aware of them in my 20s and even 30s. I think 30s, I was just like, okay, becoming a new mom and going, wait, my limits have totally changed because my body has changed and my mental capacity and all the things that I'm worried about and coordinating. That was the wake-up call for me. I'm not saying you have to have kids at all, because I don't believe that's for everyone. To still have times in your life where your body is shifting and you can't do what you did when you were young, when you were, I think we kind of think back to, oh, well, I used to be able to do this. As a teenager, I would run around and do a whole bunch of things. I had so much energy. In my 20s, I was able to stay up late. And, I honestly, during my 20s, and I was doing a lot of coding. I was doing a lot of web design, and I would stay up late and I could recover the next day, sleeping in, of course. But knowing that then when my son came along, I was like, I cannot do that anymore. Not only is my schedule changed, like I can't really sleep in with having a newborn or a toddler. But also going, my body can't recover from those like all night coding sessions. Like that's a limit. And it takes brain power and your heart, your heart and mind to come to this resolution that just isn't you anymore. Like I was like, that's not me. That's not something that I can do. And there can be some mourning in that. But I think the more and more we get older, we realize that everyone's getting older around us as well. And they're doing things, or they're not doing as many things as they used to. So we're in this together, there's, the saying of, it's not if you will be getting, whether or not they're chronic conditions or health conditions, it's kind of when, right? As we all age, we are all going to have more and more limits of what we can or cannot do. And having a supportive community, having supportive friends, or other services around us is going to be necessary as we grow old. So, but in the here and now, like, it's important to kind of recognize before we burn out. And I know this is the hard part, right? You hear from so many people like, oh, just rein it in, just pull it back. First of all, there are a lot of people who have requirements of them that they have to do things. And in a society who's in like, how much can we produce? How much can we get done? Kind of a hustle culture, like go, go, go. Our managers and people who are above us at jobs, at work, will say, no, we have to get this done and you need to push through. And those can be times when your kids are sick or you're sick or you have a lot going on in your life where you're having, family disagreements or like all these other things on the side that make it really hard to concentrate. And it's going, okay, do I have any control over this situation? Is there anything that I can communicate to say, I need to work like 2/3 of a day today. I need to take a personal hour or two. I need to take a personal day. Is there something in my schedule that I can say no to? Is there something fun to add to my schedule to maybe look forward to? So I'm talking about burnout, but I'm also talking about mental burnout, as in if you're working way too hard. Now, I work for myself, but I can definitely overwork myself. I can definitely go, okay, you're not going to have much fun until you get this done. But then I also find like, I need a little motivation to keep going. And I have like pre-celebrations that I do. So I will do things to kind of celebrate going into a hard time so that as I'm going through those like really concentrated work sessions or producing things, I mainly produce digital things, that I have these reminders around me to keep going, that I had some happy times, that I know I will have more happy times. I'm not as great celebrating after. I'll kind of just go to the next thing, but that's why I do pre-celebrations. But I think when we have support around us, whether it's like, a mug that you're drinking out of because it reminds you of a day that you spent together with friends or family, whether it's a notebook or something, those can help. But what I'm also talking about with knowing your limits is setting boundaries. And boundaries are meant to keep you safe. Boundaries are meant to have a separation between you and other people. So this is where you end and this is where the other people begin. And other people could be the job, it could be the workplace, it could be a friendship, or it could be a family member. And that you're trying to keep this boundary of saying, okay, I understand my family member needs a lot from me right now, but I need to keep myself safe and to focus on my immediate health needs or my work or something that's just really important right now. Just having that boundary and saying, okay, this is what's keeping me safe. This is what's keeping me going. And I can adjust that at a later point. So it can be temporary, right? It can be a day, a week, a season. And then looking inside your heart, looking inside your mind, looking at your body's conditions, reactions. I'm trying to think of the right word here. What you're noticing, is your body extra achy right now? Is it slowing down? Is it, sometimes we can get kind of like really going with adrenaline so much that we don't realize that our body's taking on too much. Usually for me, when that happens, it's because anxiety is driving me to just go, go, go. And I need to slow down, stop, sit, talk to my therapist, journal, and go, what the heck's going on? What is going on with my anxiety? That I am pushing my body enough that I might hit my limit and go over. Now, all these limits and boundaries are fuzzy, right? There's always going to be conditional, like, okay, well, but it's a Thursday and Thursdays are harder or easier. It's the first day of my period and I have I wasn't expecting that and I'm just way more tired than I thought. It's, I'm having a flare up for my chronic condition. Or, hey, I got some really good sleep last night. I have a lot more energy than I expected. So all these fluctuations sometimes aren't even known until like the morning of. But for me, I try to put some of these details, I journal about them, or I put some of these details in a health planner I have to see what those trends are. Journaling, especially of going, oh, well, that's the mental part of like going, well, I worked way too hard on this one thing. I need to pull back. I know I need to get this done, but maybe I'll take 2 days instead of 1 day on it. Splitting things into chunks of like, okay, this is this really big project, but if I just did 2 hours a day instead of 8 hours one day, and I know that's hard for those who have ADHD. I'm in that boat too. I'm like, well, I could just get it all done in 1 day, right? And that's hard. Putting in mini milestones can really help from like having that, okay, I overexerted myself that day. I went way over my limit. But looking at it as like, okay, I did 2 hours of work today and that's as in on that project, so that I can have other projects, running alongside those, but still knowing like, okay, I need to pull back from this. Now, if you are having chronic conditions that affect the workplace, you need to talk to your manager and HR about what ADA accommodations that you can have, because there are protections, even though they're kind of weak right now. I have to say, like, there are people who go to their higher ups and they are like, look, I need this. And they come back and say, no, we can't provide that, which can possibly be illegal. Look into that in your state, because every state differs, but there are ADA protections for the nation here in the US. So I feel like I would approach an employer every time and ask, hey, I need, either an office that can accommodate, maybe the lights are too bright, maybe the workload needs to be at like 80% instead of 100%, because ultimately they are going to get better work from you in the long run, because you'll be able to more maintain a steadiness instead of burnout and then being sick and then burnout and then going forward again and having this, like, it's almost like a pendulum swing, right? Swinging it too far, way over your limit, and then backtracking way under that. So then you end up feeling guilty. I think for a lot of us, we will swing that pendulum forward, pushing as hard as we can, and on that swing back, because we are taking extended amount of time or more time than we think is necessary, then that's where the guilt can sit. That's where it can kind of creep in and go, oh, but I'm not doing enough, is when I went over my limit, so I feel bad. I feel bad for resting. I feel bad for not being able to keep up. I feel bad for all these things. Like there can be shame, there can be blame, there can be just feeling guilty. There's a lot of feelings there. And I definitely urge people to examine that, whether with a therapist, with journaling or something. Usually it comes from childhood, as they all say, like all of these ideals were kind of introduced to us in childhood. So it can be something where someone else's words are kind of stuck in your head of like what it means to be valuable, what it means to be of value in this society. And that takes some unlearning and going, wait a minute, that is somebody else's words that maybe they heard from someone else. That's not me though. I'm going to do things my way, if possible. I know there are a lot of limitations in what you can push back with. There are certain situations where you feel very stuck and you feel like you don't have much control over your life and you have to go through the motions. And I urge in those situations to try to get as much as support as possible, whether it's friends, family, community, because we shouldn't be going through this alone, and we should be able to, we would love to be able to say like, oh, just say no to things, but I know that's not realistic. So I wanted to give you those kind of ideas on like boundaries and limits, and maybe just taking a pause this next week and kind of reflecting upon what your limits are, in what situation, with what people, with what kind of work, with what kind of time of year or season or things that you're going through. So I hope that helps. And I just want to thank you for joining me on the My Senses, My Space podcast.